Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anissa Farhana and my metric number is 294986. Today I will be presenting chapter 1 of my research, which focuses on the impact of smartphone use before bedtime on the sleep quality of university students, specifically those at STM University Utara Malaysia. In today's era, smartphones are more than just a tool for communication. For university students, they serve as devices for academic work, socialization, and also entertainment. As digital user, students use smartphone extensively even during nighttime. However, despite their benefit, the use of smartphone before sleep has serious concerns. Exposure to smartphone screen at night, especially due to blue light, has been shown to suppress melatonin, a hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. This study therefore aims to examine how smartphone use right before bedtime affect sleep quality among students at UUM. Understanding this connection is increasingly important as sleep issues among students become more common. So, we will continue with the background of study. Statistics show that over 90% of tertiary students own smartphone and many of them use the devices late into the night. Common activities include social media scrolling, watching video, browsing website, and also gaming, all of which are often done just before bedtime. So that the blue light from the screen and mental engagement with stimulating content interfere with the sleep latency and also can reduce total sleep duration, and at the same time it also can affect the sleep efficiency. At UUM, the high availability of internet and integration of digital tools in academic life make smartphone usage even more prevalent. A local pilot student found that many students at UUM use smartphone just before sleeping, with several reporting difficulty falling asleep or waking up tired. Despite growing awareness of the negative effect of the smartphone on sleep, many university students continue to use them extensively before going to bed. This leads to the bedtime procrastination, poor sleep hygiene, and overall sleep fragmentation. While many students link screen time generally to poor sleep, only a few have explored how pre-bedtime smartphone use specifically affect in-sleep Malaysian students, especially at the institutional level like UUM. Poor sleep isn't a minor issue, it has a real academic and health consequences. Students who sleep poorly are more likely to experience low academic performance, stress, and mood disorder. In the long run, chronic sleep deprivation can lead to the serious health issues like heart disease and metabolic disorder. This study addressed that gap by focusing on STM students at UM. It aimed to understand the kind of smartphone use they engage in before bedtime, how frequently they do so, and whether this behavior is significantly linked to poor sleep quality. Based on the identified problem, this study is guided by the following research question. The first one is, what is the duration of the smartphone use before sleep among STM students? And the second one is, what types of activity do these students engage in on their smartphone before sleeping? And the third one is, how does smartphone usage before sleep affect the quality of their sleep? This question aims to provide a comprehensive picture of how both the quantity and nature of smartphone use are related to sleep patterns. So, to answer this question, the study set out with three main objectives. The first one is to identify how long students use their smartphone before bedtime. Second, to determine the types of smartphone activity commonly performed at night. And the third one is to assess how this behavior impact the sleep quality of students based on PSQI indicators. This objective will help exploring not only patterns of smartphone use but also how different behavior contribute to sleep disturbances or poor rest. Next, we will continue with scope of study. This study is focused on full-time undergraduate students aged 18 to 25 years old at STM, University Utara Malaysia. The approach is quantitative method and the data will be collected using an online self-report survey. The independent variables of IV is smartphone screen time, the frequency of use before sleep, and the type of activity performed. The dependent variable is sleep quality, which will assist using the Peak Burst Sleep Quality Index, or we call it as PSQI. The data will be collected over a 2-week period. Analytical methods such as descriptive statistic, Pearson correlation, and multiple regression analysis will be used. Ethical standard will be strictly followed, including informed consent and also voluntary participation and data confidentiality.
Hi everyone, in this part of our presentation, I will be walking you through the key concept and theoretical background behind our study on smartphone usage and sleep quality. Let's start with the variables that we have investigated. First, our dependent variable, which is sleep quality. It may sound simple, but sleep quality actually involves several factors like how long you sleep, how easily you fall asleep, how often your sleep is interrupted, and whether you feel rest when you wake up. Good sleep is super important, especially for students like us. But when we have poor sleep quality, it can lead to a serious issue like stress, academic decline, and even worse, which is depression. Now, on to the independent variable, which are the things we believe that might be affecting sleep quality. The first one is the duration of smartphone use before sleep. This refers to the how long we spend on our phone, especially 1 to 2 hours before bed. Studies show that longer usage time is linked to the worse sleep, partly due to the blue light exposure that disrupt our melatonin, a hormone that helps us to sleep at night. Now, let's relate this variable to psychological theory. The first one is the arousal theory. This explains how using smartphone, especially for the longer periods, can cause mental and emotional stimulation. This stimulation make it harder for us to relax and fall asleep at night, which lower our sleep quality. Next, we look at the type of the smartphone activity usage before bed. People use phone at night for many things such as social media, watching videos, game, or even studying. Some of these activities are more stimulating than others and may affect sleep differently. Next, take a look at the theoretical background. We have the cognitive behavioral model of insomnia. It says that certain bedtime smartphone activities such as social media or academic stress basically can raise our mental alertness and emotional arousal. Basically, our minds are too busy to reset and make it difficult to sleep at the night. So lastly, we have the presence of smartphone use before sleep. This simply means whether someone used their phone before bed or not, even just a few minutes can disturb our body's natural sleep cycle, especially if the content is either exciting or stressful. So, for the last variable, we can relate it with the stimulus control theory, where it tells us that the bed should only be associated with the sleep, not the smartphone. Using the phone in the bed trains your brain to stay alert in a place which is meant for rest, which worsen our sleep over the time. So, to sum it up, our theoretical framework connect all of these elements. We believe that the longer you use your smartphone, the more stimulating your phone activity are, and even just having your phone present before sleep, all of these contribute to the lower sleep quality. So these relationships are backed by the past study and supported by the theories that I just mentioned before.
We continue with the development of research hypotheses. In this research, several hypotheses have been successfully developed to establish the relationships between the independent variables and the dependent variable. The hypotheses are presented on the next slide. There appears to be a negative link between how long students use their smartphones before bed and the quality of their sleep. In general, the longer they are on their phones at night, the more likely they are to experience poor sleep. This could be because extended screen time, especially the blue light and constant digital stimulation, keeps the brain active, making it harder to relax and fall asleep. It can also interfere with melatonin production, the hormone that helps regulate our sleep cycle. This pattern is supported by arousal theory, which explains that mentally stimulating activities like scrolling through social media or watching videos can make it harder for the brain to switch off and prepare for rest. The quality of sleep seems to be affected differently depending on the type of smartphone activity students engage before bed. More active and interactive users like gaming, chatting, or watching videos tend to negatively impact sleep, likely because they keep the brain stimulated. On the other hand, more passive activities like reading don't seem to have as much of an effect. This aligns with the cognitive behavioral model of insomnia, which suggests that mentally and emotionally stimulating content can make it harder to wind down, leading to delays in falling asleep and generally poorer sleep quality. Using a smartphone before bed, even for a short time, tends to be linked with lower sleep quality. Students who regularly use their phones at night, regardless of how long or what they are doing, may be more likely to experience poor sleep habits and trouble falling asleep, and overall lower sleep quality. According to stimulus control theory, having a smartphone in bed can interfere with the brain's natural connection between the bed and sleep. Instead of seeing bedtime as a time to rest, the brain starts to associate it with being awake and alert, making it harder to fall asleep peacefully.
So hi everyone, now I will explain about the hypothesis testing, which is in research design. The purpose the hypothesis testing is to examine the link between the smartphone use and the sleep quality, which is the IV and DV. And the method that we use is percent correlation coefficients and the regressions analysis. So we have a three hypotheses, which is the first one. Hypothesis one is negative correlation exists between the duration smartphone use just before bed and quality of sleep. The second one is that type of activities on the phone negatively affect sleep quality. And the last one, presence of smartphone use before sleep negatively impacts the sleep quality. That's all. Okay, for this slide, I will explain about the population, sample, and unit of analysis that we use. So the first one, the population that we take, which is we take from Inasis TM in University Utara Malaysia. Why we choose the Inasis TM? Because university students is ideal due to irregular routines. And the sample size is 169 students. We use stratified random sampling technique, and the purpose is to ensure the diversity and better respondent through the population. And the goals is because we want to analyze how phone usage affects the time, type, duration, affect the sleep quality. And the last one, unit of analysis. The tools that we use is structure questionnaire that we focus area, which is the sleep quality, duration of phone use before sleep, nighttime phone activities, and this purpose because we want to gather detail insight on how smartphone use affect the sleep quality. Okay, let's continue to sampling design. So we have a 4, which is a target population, sample size, sampling method, and the purpose why we use this sampling method. So the first one, target population, we use analysis student, which is in 700, and the sample size is 169 students, which is we want to ensure the general realizability. And the sampling method that we use is stratified random sampling, which is we have a gender, we have an age, and the last one we have an academic level, which is in demographic. questionnaire. And the last one, the purpose why we use this kind of method, because to examine the impact of the smartphone, which is in duration, type and the present, on sleep quality, and we want to increase the validity and reduce the bias.
First, let's look at where our data came from. We gathered primary data through a Google Form questionnaire sent to every undergraduate student that living in NSSTM. Over 2 weeks, we received 169 fully usable responses. And because the survey was online, anonymous and mobile friendly, students could answer it at any time because it's ideal for their busy schedule. For secondary data, we consulted recent journal articles on screen time and sleep, plus classic theories from aerosol, cognitive behavioral, and stimulus control to shape our framework. Method tags like even and matter guided our choice of an online tools. Our questionnaire had 5 sections. After basic demographic, Section B measured how long students used their phone during the last hour before bed. Section C captured why they use it, for social entertainment or for study. Section D asks about simple presence behaviors. For example, do they keep the phone in bed? Are notifications are on? And finally, Section E. Section E assesses sleep quality, combining hours sleep, time to fall asleep, nighttime awakening, and self-rating drawn from the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. All items use clear Likert ordinal or yes or no scales. Before launch, we pilot tested wording and aim for Chromebus alphas of 0.7 or higher to ensure reliability. Together, these measures gives us a solid quantifiable picture of smartphone behavior and sleep among UUM students.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Noifa with number matric 294225. I will talk about data collection methods. Our study adopted a quantitative research design that primarily relied on an online survey using tracking questionnaires. The data collection target undergraduate students of UUM with a special focus on those residing in inner STM. We selected this group intentionally to keep the context relevant since students living in the same residential college often share similar routines, environments, and lifestyle. Quantitative methods like survey are highly useful when we're looking to identify patterns, trends, and relationships between variables. In this case, we were interested in the connection between smartphone use before bedtime and sleep quality. The questionnaire was distributed using Google Forms, a practical tool for digitally literate university students. It remained open for 2 weeks and participation was entirely voluntary, and importantly, before answering the survey, students were shown an informed consent form, which clearly explained the purpose of the study and assuring them that their response will be kept confidential. This step was essential to maintain ethical research practice. In total, we received 169 responses, and after cleaning the data, only complete and usable response were retained for analysis, ensuring accuracy and consistency. The questionnaire covered a variety of questions such as Likert scale, to question beliefs and frequency, orange scale for duration-related behavior, and yes or no question for specific behavior like using a phone in bed. Using a consistent format made it easier for participants to respond and allowed for smooth data processing in SPSS. Overall, this method provides a structured and ethical way of collecting rich context-specific data. Once the data was collected, we moved on to analyzing it using SPSS. This involved both descriptive and inferential statistics. The aim was twofold. First, to give us a summary of students' smartphone habits and sleep patterns, and second, to test the hypothesis we proposed earlier, to see whether smartphone use impacts sleep quality. Descriptive statistics help us understand the general distribution of data. We look at variables like average hours of phone use before sleep, sleep duration, how long it takes to fall asleep, and so on. We also analyze categorical data such as gender, academic year, and reason for phone use. Next, we applied correlation analysis, specifically percentage correlation, to see whether there's a significant relationship between the variables. For instance, does longer phone usage before bed result in shorter sleep, or does using the phone in bed affect how long it takes to fall asleep? To go further, we use regression analysis. This method helps us examine whether the independent variables like the type of activity, time spent, and whether the phone is used right before sleep can predict the dependent variable, which is sleep quality. We also use R-squared values to evaluate how much of the variation in sleep quality could be explained by our model. This step allows us to draw more meaningful interpretation from the data and test the strength of our hypothesis.
So now I will explain about the demographic background, which is we have a three component, which is from gender, age and academic level. So for the first one, gender, majority of respondents are female, which is 57.4%, that showing a clear gender imbalance in the sample. And for the age, most respondents are aged 19 to 22, which is 54.7%, and followed by 23 until 26 years, 39.2%, and while only 6.2% fall into the 27 until 13 age group. So for the academic level, majority of respondents are bachelor's degree students, which is 18.1%, with a minimal representation from foundation, which is 10.1%, and the lastly master 1.8%. So we use the method Kolmogorov-Smirnov test that used to assess normality as the sample size that assessed with 100 respondents. So for the purpose of this method is normality testing is important to ensure the validity to further statistical analysis. So for descriptive analysis, DV score analysis, so average score is 2.83 on 1 until 5 scale with a standard deviation 1.19 and indicating moderate variation. So the median is 3.0 and the skewness is 0.1.0, which is positive, that suggesting the distribution is fairly symmetrical.
In this section, we focus on the quality of our measurement tools, specifically the reliability and basic statistics of our variables. To assess reliability, we use Cronbach alpha, which tells us how consistently a set of items measure the same underlying construct. It is what we found. The DV is 0.426. This is below the acceptable threshold, suggesting weak internal reliability. For IV1, it is 0.601. This is considered questionable but still acceptable for exploratory studies. However, IV2 and 3 had a very poor internal consistency, and this might be due to unclear wording, too few items, or overlapping concepts. To improve future studies, we recommend rewording back questions, adding more items, and running item total correlation tests. We also look at the descriptive statistic for skewness and kurtosis to evaluate data normality. DV and IV1 showed a new normal distribution. IV2 was relatively flat but symmetrical, indicating data spread out around the mean. However, IV3 was highly skewed and big, meaning most responses were clustered at one end with a few outliers pulling the average. This matters because if the data is not normally distributed, parametric tests like correlation or regression may not be valid.
Hello everyone, I will be presenting section 4.4, which focus on our hypothesis testing. So we use SPSS to analyze the relationship between smartphone usage and sleep quality among students in INASIS-TM University Utara Malaysia. So we divide the testing into two main parts, which is the correlation analysis and the regression analysis. So the first one is we begin with the Pearson correlation analysis, which is used to measure the strength and the direction of the relationship between two continuous variables. So here's what we found. The first one is the duration of the smartphone use before sleep had a very weak negative correlation with sleep quality, where the R equal to the negative 0.024. That means the longer students use their smartphone, the slightly worse their sleep become. But the effect is minimal and not statistically significant. The second one is the type of smartphone activity that show a weak positive correlation with the sleep quality, where R equal to 0.103, suggesting that some type of smartphone use may slightly improve sleep, but again, this relationship is very weak. The last one is the presence of smartphone use before sleep, also had a very weak positive correlation where R equal to 0.024. Overall, the results were not significant for all of the three. So our first three hypotheses, which is H1, H2, and H3, were rejected. Next is the regression analysis, which is a statistical method used to estimate the relationship between two or more variables. It helps predict the value of a dependent variable based on one or more independent variables. In the model summary, the R-square value was only 0.011. That means only 1.1% of the variance in the sleep quality can be explained by our predictors, which is the duration, type of activity, and the presence of smartphone use. So 98.9% of the changes in sleep quality are explained by the other factors outside of our model, such as stress, environment, or personal health habit. When we test the overall model significance using one-way ANOVA, the F value was only 0.638 and the P value was only 0.592, which is greater than 0.05. So this tells us that the overall regression model is not statistically significant. So we can conclude that these three variables taken together do not significantly predict sleep quality. Finally, we examine the coefficient to understand the contribution of each variable. So the first one is the duration of smartphone use had a negative beta value, which is beta equal to negative 0.016, but was not significant, p equal to the 0.838. And the second one is the type of the smartphone activity had the highest beta, which is 0.102, but again not significant, where the p equal to 0.191. And the last one is the presence of smartphone use before sleep had a very small beta, which is 0.025, and was also not significant, where the p equal to 0.751. So although the type of the activity seems most related to sleep quality, none of the variables show significant results. To sum up, our hypothesis testing found no strong or significant relationship between smartphone use patterns and sleep quality in the sample. So this suggests that there may be other dominant factors affecting the sleep quality that we don't explore in this study. So that's all from me. Thanks for listening. I will pass to the next presenter.
To summarize, our study started with a solid dataset of 169 valid response after cleaning. The variables mostly showed an acceptable distribution except for IV3, which had a highly skewed profile. In terms of reliability, only one variable, which is IV1, reached the acceptable level for early stage research. The rest of the variables fell below 0.5, indicating that many of the items didn't consistently measure the intended constructs. We tested our hypothesis using correlation and regression. We discovered that there were no strong or statistically significant correlation between phone use and sleep quality. The regression model explained only 1.1% of the variance in sleep quality, a very small and statistically insignificant effect. None of the predictors in the model, not phone use duration, not activity type, nor presence of phone usage, had a meaningful impact. As a result, we had to reject all three hypotheses. This indicates that smartphone use before sleep does not have a measurable impact on sleep quality among the sample of students we studied. However, that doesn't mean sleep is unaffected. Other factors such as stress, environment, or academic workload may be more influential. Future studies should consider adding test variables and improving the questionnaire to get more accurate results.
And now we continue with the discussion of findings. The current study aims to explore the impact of different patterns of previous sleep time smartphone use, namely the duration of use, the type of activity performed, and having smartphones at bedtime on the quality of sleep in undergraduate students at INASIS-TM University Utara Malaysia. The findings offer valuable information on how current digital practices are related to student sleep and well-being. Although none of the three variables predicted statistically significant effects on sleep quality, the results still capture patterns that are consistent with the prevailing theoretical and empirical literature in the research area of sleep science and behavioral psychology. The first hypothesis examines whether the amount of time students spend on their smartphones before bed affects their sleep quality. The results show a very weak negative correlation, meaning those who use their phones longer tend to sleep slightly worse, although the relationship wasn't statistically significant. This aligns with past research suggesting that late night screen use can reduce melatonin levels, delay sleep, and disrupt natural sleep cycles. Arousal theory also support this, explaining that mental stimulation from phones can keep the brain too active for rest. However, the weak result may be due to students practicing good sleep habits like using blue light filters or underestimating their screen time. With students juggling studies, work, and social life, phone use at night may also serve as a coping strategy, masking its negative effects. These findings suggest that efforts to improve sleep should not only focus on limiting screen time, but also encourage healthier bedtime routines. The second hypothesis explores whether the type of smartphone activity before bed affects sleep quality. Interestingly, the results show a very weak positive correlation, suggesting that some phone activities like listening to music or using meditation apps might actually support better sleep, even though the result wasn't significant. This challenges the common view that all smartphone use is harmful before bed and highlights that the content and purpose of use matter. According to the cognitive behavioral model of insomnia, stimulating activities like gaming or chatting can delay sleep, while relaxing ones may help wind down. The weak correlation could reflect a mix of both habits among students. However, the low reliability of the measurement tool and limited survey items may have oversimplified students' behaviors. Future studies should look deeper into the specific types of activities students engage in at night, as how they use their phones may be just important as how much they use them. The hypothesis 3 look at whether simply having or frequently using a smartphone before bed affects sleep quality. The results show a very weak, non-significant positive correlation, which was unexpected since past research and stimulus control theory suggests that keeping a phone near the bed can interfere with the brain's ability to associate the bed with sleep. However, many students today use their phones as part of their bedtime routine for alarms, calming apps, or background sounds, which might explain the slight positive trend. It's also possible that students have adapted to having their phones nearby and no longer find them disruptive, especially if they silence notifications or don't actively engage with the device. The low reliability of the measure suggests that students may have interpreted presence differently, which makes the data inconsistent. Future research should clearly distinguish between passive presence and active use to better understand how smartphone habits at night truly affect sleep.
Now, I would like to explain the limitation of this study, which are important to consider when interpreting the findings. Firstly, although we collected many responses, only 169 were valid and usable due to incomplete answer. All participants came from INASIS-TM, so the result might not represent students from other university. Secondly, the data was self-reported, which means participants answer based on their own memory or perception. This can cause recall bias or socially desirable responses, especially for sensitive questions like sleep habit or screen time. Third is the study used a quantitative-only approach. While this allows us to analyze numerical patterns, and it didn't give us deeper insight into why students use their phone late at night or how they feel about their sleep. As we know, qualitative methods such as interview could have provided more personal information. So the fourth is this was a cross-sectional study, meaning the data were collected only once. So we cannot say for sure whether smartphone use causes poor sleep or if students with poor sleep tend to use their phone more. Next is our regression model also show the weak result. The variable we study such as phone usage time or phone location did not significantly predict the sleep quality. This suggests that other factors like stress, mental health, academic workload, or even lifestyle habits may have more influence but were not included in this study. Lastly, for future, so the fourth is this was a cross-sectional study, meaning the data were collected only once. So we cannot say for sure whether smartphone use causes poor sleep or if students with poor sleep tend to use their phone more. Next is our regression model also show the weak result. The variable we study such as phone usage time or phone location did not significantly predict the sleep quality. This suggests that other factors like stress, mental health, academic workload, or even lifestyle habits may have more influence but were not included in this study. Lastly, for future,
This section focuses on recommendations for future research and real-world implication. First, we suggest expanding the sample to include students from different universities and programs for more general result. Second, using a longitudinal design would help us understand whether phone use causes sleep issues or the other way around. Third, future studies should combine surveys with interviews to capture real behavior. And we also recommend including variables like academic stress or caffeine intake, which could affect sleep. So, to improve accuracy, future research should use better designed questionnaire and technology like sleep trackers or phone usage logs. Academically, this will help build stronger models, and practically, it can guide universities to develop smarter strategies for student digital well-being. To conclude, our study set out to explore how smartphones' habit can impact the sleep quality of students in SHTM. However, our findings show that none of these variables had a statistically significant effect. The regression of model accounted for just 1.1% of the variation in sleep quality, suggesting that these phone-related factors alone cannot explain sleep outcomes. But this result doesn't mean the topic isn't important. In fact, it highlights the complexity of sleep behavior. Sleep is not only affected by screen time, it also influenced by stress level, daily routines, academic workload, mental health, and even the environment. We also found that the reliability of some measurement tools was low, and the sample was limited to just one residential college, which may have affected the strength of our result. Despite this limitation, this research still provides important insight. It challenges the common assumption that phone use before bed always lead to poor sleep. It also reminds us that promoting better sleep among students requires a more holistic approach, like one that includes stress management, time management, and education about healthy digital habits. Ultimately, this study lays the groundwork for future research that is more inclusive, more accurate, and better equipped to support student well-being in a digital age.